Hello and welcome back to Snap and Towels, ready for episode 2. Kyle, how's it going?
Absolutely excited to be here. Last time was a lot of fun, so I'm down for round two.
Yeah, so we had our first full weekend of games this past weekend, early February lacrosse. You got to love it. Had a nor'easter slash bomb cyclone here on the East Coast, which made for some interesting games, some interesting travel arrangements for a lot of teams. Kind of a tune-up weekend for most programs that played this past weekend, or at least they thought so. But yeah, Kyle, what'd you think of the weekend?
Yeah, you could say tune-up weekend. I think in most years that's what it looked like, but with all these veterans coming back, these tune-up games aren't as close as you'd predict in early season ball. I think a lot of teams really took care of business, and they're more of statement games on where these teams are after a long fall.
Yeah, but definitely agree with that. I think we should start off with the Terps hanging 21 on a solid High Point squad.
Absolutely. I mean, Maryland in College Park, first game of the season. Those guys are ready to run, and their captain, wearing number one, Wisnauskas, was the leader from the start.
Yeah, Wisnauskas put up 8 points and a 5-3 performance. One thing that can't be overlooked about this game is Asher Nolting back for High Point. Seems like year 6 now. Put up a casual 1-6. I think it's safe to say he'll have at least a few nice summers in the PLL. That kid is dangerous from all places on the offensive end.
Oh, he's a big body with some silky hands, and he'll put a lot of numbers up in the SoCon and probably be looking to be the player of the year in that division as he ends his career down in High Point.
Yeah, totally agree. He's got some nice players around him. I don't think it should be overlooked that High Point, put up 13 on Maryland, which is no easy task. But yeah, I think we both have High Point winning the SoCon this year.
No, absolutely. But then also there were some blowouts which we expected from ACC teams playing some SoCons and some lower ranked divisions. But there are some tight ones which you could have written off as big wins for teams like Denver.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about Denver, Utah, first of all, kudos to Utah for scheduling Denver right off the bat. And it looks like this could potentially be an every year kind of West Coast showdown as Utah continues to kind of build their program, bring in the players that they need. But yeah, 14-13 battle. I think Denver. I think you can count on them kind of improving from here on out. Game 1, early February. I'm sure they've got a ton of talent on offense, kind of trying to figure out where to put it. Probably Utah's Super Bowl for their schedule. But yeah, a tough battle, and respect to Utah for hanging tough here.
Absolutely. Jack Henna's an absolute problem. They returned a handful of guys that had some offensive experience last year, even though they lost a bunch of those Yale guys that came over from the COVID year, Jackson
Yep.
Morrell and company. They had a big impact on that Denver offense. So it's going to take some adjusting to who's going to fill those roles. But I expect the Pios to pull it together in the next coming weeks for sure.
Yeah, Jordan Hyde and Tyler Bradbury, kind of led the way for the Pios this weekend. I think you can expect them to kind of fill up box scores all year long.
Yeah. And Jack Hanna. He's going to be a second, first or second team All-American coming out of Denver for sure. I think he's pretty unguardable. Flicks his wrist, it goes anywhere in the cage. So
Yeah.
excited to watch him run around.
Yeah, no doubt. And actually, I think it's a positive sign for Denver that he didn't have a monster day and they were still able to get that W. So,
and then on the flip side, you've got a hungry Utes coming in, and they've got nothing to lose. So it's kind of maybe a case of Denver sleeping off last year's victories, even though they didn't end the season where they wanted to be. They still were hosting a tournament game. So they had a great season. They're kind of hanging their hat. Utah comes in. They've been training hard. They've got great coaches out there that play pro ball, still very current, young youth energy in that building. And you saw what happened. It was
yeah,
almost a big upset.
Utah's a really fun program. If I were going through the recruiting process again and Utah were to give me a call, I'd definitely take them seriously. Beautiful part of the country, great facilities, big time athletics, and as you said, kind of a star-studded coaching staff of young guys. It'd be a fun program to be a part of. I think we'll definitely talk more Utah this year, maybe even later this episode. But moving on from Denver, Utah, I think we're going to move into the Buckeyes, who handled business against Detroit Mercy. Senior attackman, Buckeye captain Jack Myers led the way with 8 points. I think we'll see him crack an All-American team again for sure this year. And my boy Bobby Van Buren, one of my breakout players for 2022, the homeschooled, I believe number 7 recruit in the country, coming in, already had 3 GBs, took a shot, so he's going to be a factor in transition.
Wearing 44, which is an established defensive number at Ohio State. That's kind of their token number, if you'd say. I don't think they don't have one on offense, but I know their top dog on D wears 44. So that's kind of a nod to the freshman that he's going to be a staple down there for the Buckeyes. So
for sure,
we'll be following Bobby B all season.
Yeah, no, that's no doubt. That's a telling sign too. They definitely have confidence in this kid.
BVB.
Yeah, I think we might have to coin that, right? BVB.
Yeah, he's going to be an animal. I'm excited to see him play in a big game they have and in the Big Ten.
Yeah, no doubt. I think it's safe to say he already belongs. Moving on to Hopkins. Hopkins edged out a scrappy Jacksonville team. Kyle, you're more familiar with the Jays than I am, having played them every year in college. But a 3-goal win. A win is a win.
Win to win early in the season. You'll take them if you can get them. I think another case of a Hopkins team sleeping on a hungry SoCon team. Or I think they're in the new the Sun Conference, the A Sun.
The Ace, yeah, they're part of the Atlantic Sun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I mean, less notable conference coming up, and really hungry in Baltimore to show the country what they've been doing for a couple of years and growing that program. They've got Galloway. I know Chris Bachlet does a lot of training with those players down there, goes to practices and stuff. So they've got well-experienced Hall of Famers in their locker room teaching them the game. And then you've got a Hopkins team that's littered with talent. Maybe some of their stars didn't have the best day, but they slept on Jacksonville. It might have woken them up.
Yeah, let's hope so. They need to be awake. They got a pretty tough 6-game stretch ahead of them. This weekend, they play under the lights at Towson on Friday. They host Georgetown on Sunday. And then they go Loyola, UNC, UVA, and Syracuse. So they got a hell of a 6-game stretch, and then they go into Big Ten play. So, yeah, they do need to wake up. I think, a good sign for them, or at least a positive sign is, they were able to beat a solid Jacksonville team with their best player, in my opinion, Joey Epstein, going 0 for 6, having no points in the box score. I think you got to imagine that that's going to be kind of an anomaly, right? That's not going to happen maybe ever again. But yeah, they're going to need a big performance out of Joey Epstein
to Jacksonville.
This weekend.
Whoever was guarding him, and if the goalie made some saves that we don't know about, they did something that threw off a hell of a player. So tips your caps to them, and hoping Joey can get back on kind of a streak he was on to help Hopkins in that psychotic schedule.
Yeah, no doubt. He's a fun player to watch. Would love to see Hopkins kind of have a resurgence this year. I think it's definitely, whether you like the Jays or not, I think it's more fun when they're at least in the mix. Especially, I think that Big Ten really needs a second or a number 2 or number 3 to really complement, the obvious winner, probably the Terps. If the Big Ten can be 2, 3, maybe even 4 teams deep, I think that'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, they need teams with winning records, or else the division's going to kind of drop on the bubble teams. You see, if they don't win the Big Ten, they're going to be a bubble team. And if those Penn State, we'll talk about Michigan's schedule, Penn State, Ohio State, all of those schools don't produce early season with wins, those bubble teams get hurt. So we'll see. Yeah,
no doubt. Moving on to Duke. Duke had 2 games this weekend. Duke likes to kind of typically opens up with 2 games in a weekend. I think it's, one of Danowski's ways to kind of get them geared up for, what they're really playing for, which is the ACC tournament and ultimately, Memorial Day weekend. But starting off with Robert Morris on Friday night, Kyle, I know you have some thoughts on that game.
Yeah, Duke showed what they can do offensively in the first 10 minutes. It was 10-1 with 5 to go in the first quarter. So they kind of let off the brakes a little bit. You could say went to sleep. Robert Morris didn't. They came back. They've got silky Canadians on attack that are going to be star studs in the NLL for a long time. So with that kind of balance, I think it was just Duke was just more powerful, more skilled offensively, and Robert Morris got their kind of goals in transition and weren't as successful in the half field 6-on-6 stuff. But I tip my cap to Robert Morris. They never took their foot off the gas. But they were able to stay within 4 games. Duke could never take out the starters. It was a back and forth for a little bit, but Duke was comfortable the whole game.
Yeah, you can always expect Robert Morris to play tough, but I think Duke's depth obviously kind of really shined through there. In 4 quarters of play, and then on Sunday, Duke
quick turnaround.
Quick turnaround. Duke hosts the Catamounts of Vermont. Vermont was one of my teams to watch this year, one of my dark horse, breakout teams to watch this year. Vermont led 4-2 at half. They looked really solid in the first half. You got to give a lot of credit to Tommy Burke of UVM at the faceoff X. He kind of dominated the game at the X, which is something to watch for Duke moving forward. As we both know, it's going to be tough to compete in the ACC if you're not humming at the faceoff X. And I think Duke's rope unit looked a little underwhelming, to be totally honest.
Yeah.
I was impressed with Vermont. They got, as always, they had some nice kind of silky offensive players, but they had some really nice athletes at pole. And then, I think Tommy Cornell, what's Cornell's first name?
Ryan Cornell,
right. Had a really, really great first half. Excellent play in transition. That was all over Instagram. The kid's a player.
Yeah, no, he's a big-time recruit coming out of Darien. Legendary program, legendary coach over there. But, I think he really showed in that game. He kept Vermont in it. Vermont had a lot of chances early to bury goals that you just can't miss against Duke and expect to be in the game late in the game. So hats off to Vermont for getting down there. They had to fly. They drove to New Hampshire to fly. Couldn't fly out of New Hampshire. Had to drive to Boston. Ended up getting down Saturday night for a Sunday tilt. Had a Saturday practice, then went out there. So as Duke had it home on Friday, home on Sunday. I'd rather that than a travel day like that. Getting in, so you could argue who had it worse on the turnaround. But Vermont was impressive. I think it's their conference to lose in the American East, coming off as the champions last year. But there's definitely some turning points in the game that had to do with refereeing. I have a big problem with some NCAA rules this year. If this is actually the rule or it was just the call they made on the field, I don't know. We should check that out and bring in an insider that knows the rules like the back of their hand. But there was a play in the first half that would have put Vermont up 4-2. I think it was an attack. It might have been an attack midi. Kid coming out of the box gets underneath on the wing dodge, beats his man clean, gets pushed from behind, finishes, and because that push gets launched into the goalie, making contact through the mouth of the goalie.
Right. The goal mouth is the key term here.
Absolutely. Which is right in front. It's actually like a 4-foot radius in front of the cage, a 6-foot cage. So you have 2 feet on those sides. Those are rough. That's an estimate. But all I'm saying is it was a great move by the offensive player. And the call essentially was, after talking about it for a while, Charlie Fife was going irate. 2 flags down. They took the goal away. They gave the offensive player for the goal mouth infraction, diving into the goalie, 1 minute. And the push 30 seconds, Duke ball man up for a minute.
And no goal.
Goal. So it's a complete shafting, a bailout the defensive players. So defensively, you're like, if you get beat underneath,
you might as well funnel them and get beat underneath every single time.
Push them into the goal mouth. The goalie makes contact. It's a flag down, and your ball they're locked in for a minute. So that was a huge momentum swing. Felt bad for Vermont. Down at Duke, you're going to get some calls that look like that. And then the second half, before Duke turned on the motor, there was a sequence where 44, I forget his name, for Vermont, big athletic mid, he's great, the Canadian player, beat his man clean right down the lane to the cage. Obvious trip, no call. It's going back down in transition, scrum in the middle of the field.
Nakai Murray gets away with a hold in the
Nakai
scrum, I believe.
Montgomery gets away with an
Yeah.
absolute veteran hold. I tip my cap to him because I'm like, hey, why not? He chicken winged him a little bit in the middle field, kicked it to himself, picks it up, makes a play, tic-tac-toe, toe on the backside. 2 blown calls. The kids on the field were like, what's going on here? It was kind of one of those calls you see and you're like expecting them to blow the whistle and the whistle never comes. So those calls kind of stuck with me. Not saying that had any swing on how the outcome was, but I think it would have been an interesting game if Vermont's leading by 2 at half, and then that big momentum play in the second half doesn't go Duke's way, and it's actually a trip, Vermont up, man up, instead of a swing the other way. So that left a little bit of a sour taste in my mouth from the game, being a Catamounts fan and wanting to see a better game on national TV.
Love the move of Dyson Williams back down to attack. He's just a natural goal scorer. And then you got Robertson, who's probably not everybody's favorite player just because everybody else on Duke kind of jumps off the page. But the kid makes smart plays. He's a 6th-year senior. He's got experience in the biggest possible games. He's kind of a perfect 6th guy in that offense, to be totally honest.
And that's a good perspective. I myself in the first episode was a little hard on him. They have talent. They have guys that could easily replace him. He's shown he's a leader. He's shown he could take the ball in the 4th quarter and end the game. So respect to him. And I think it's honestly a wise coaching move. You've got all this talent. You don't want them all on the field at the same time because it blocks things up. You need space and you need players to fill those roles of the C cuts and all the crease action and back pipe, stuff like that.
We'll talk about Virginia, right? Virginia took care of business against Air Force. Offense of UVA kind of led by familiar faces, right? Schellenberger.
Left Cormier, off right where they were.
Right. More, having great afternoons. Obviously, a really tough matchup for Air Force. Xander Dixon had a 4-goal performance. I think we can look for him to be maybe an X factor for the Hoos this spring.
Yeah, he's going to need to come up with big games. All eyes are going to be on Schellenberger. It's everyone else needs to bury the opportunities they get, and they have. So, we'll see them as we usually do in Final Four weekend. Some new faces on their defense, ending goal, starting a freshman, Matt Nunes. So we'll see how he does when some teams start peppering him in the ACC.
Yeah, no, totally. Moving on, we talked about everybody taking care of business, everyone aside from Navy.
Yes, we gave Navy a lot of love on the first episode.
Yeah, look, the service academies.
And they dogged us.
Yeah, they really did. And, every year it's like, okay, that Navy or Army is going to pull off, an upset, or they're going to be on TV playing against a big dog and play well, look good, maybe crack the tournament. Even if they don't win the Patriot League, like, I feel like people are always kind of looking for them to not to give them the at-large. I don't want to say it's not earned, but they're definitely on the radar for an at-large every year if they don't get that Patriot League win. This is a terrible loss, frankly, for Navy. It almost makes it so if they don't pull off a massive upset, they have to win the Patriot League to get in. This pretty much wipes them from an at-large discussion. I don't want to say, it's a massive upset just because I don't think we know enough about either team yet in 2022. Definitely a program upset, but maybe Mount St. Mary's has a great team this year. We don't really know.
We'll find out. We will find out soon. They've got some games coming up that'll be very interesting to us. Blue Hens, we'll see where their season kind of goes. And you never know with kids staying back with this COVID year. So, a senior-led team, a young Navy team, Navy had an own goal early. That kind of shoots your momentum in the foot. It might have been one of those sleepy days down there for the midshipmen, which you're honestly surprised to see playing them every year in the Patriot League, that those are rare days for them.
Yeah, no doubt. They usually show up every Saturday. You can give them that.
No, absolutely. So kudos to Mount St. Mary's for going in there and taking.
Yeah, I mean, Mount St. Mary's goal had 15 saves. So, that's a monster day. That's a game-changing day. You have a kind of a more pedestrian day in cage, 8 or 9 saves, maybe, Navy wins. So good for him. I want to give a special shout out to my Blue Hens. Kyle and I have been have been bouncing around talking about, dark horse teams. I'm pretty hot on the Blue Hens. They had a hot year last year. They're kind of a senior-led team. They got a three-headed monster at attack. They smoked NJIT, hung 19 on them. Mike Robinson had a 9-point performance on 6 for 6 shooting. Delaware's got an interesting schedule. They've got a massive game against Duke coming up in, I think, 3 weeks.
3 weeks.
2 weeks, right? If they're 3-0,
yeah,
3 weeks.
Yeah.
2 weeks. Okay, yeah. If Delaware's 3-0 going into that Duke game, we're talking about it. And even if Delaware doesn't leave Durham with a victory, and DeLuca and the Blue Hens go in there and lose a 2 or 3 goal battle against Duke, I think it's safe to say that Delaware is for real, and a team to watch this year for sure.
I'm with you. I like Ben DeLuca with a couple years under his belt in Delaware. He's a great coach. Proved it in Cornell. Proved it at Duke as an assistant, winning some national championships as the D coordinator. But overall, it's an interesting storyline with him going into Duke, knowing what they're going to want to do with a senior-led group that's hungry for a statement program win. We'll talk about schedules right now. Let's start with Hopkins.
I mean, Hopkins' schedule, and that Hopkins has always kind of been famous for having monster schedules. That's why they were an independent for so long, so they could, literally schedule everybody, right? The who's who of college lacrosse. And people thought they might take a step back, but joining the Big Ten. But have the Big Ten be turning out to be such a strong conference, and then for them to just come in with an absolute knockout of an out-of-conference schedule. You got to tip your hat to them. Hopkins has had some down years, right? Like, if Hopkins is 4-3, even 3-3 going into the Big Ten, like they've earned it. They're battle tested. They're ready. They have a nice Big Ten record. They have a chance at an at-large, right? Where on the other hand, you have Michigan, who, I mean, their schedule, Kyle, I don't know if you have it up right now, is
I got
honestly, for lack of a better term, it's an embarrassment.
It's an embarrassment. And it's unfortunate for the alumni. Like I said, the recruits. I'm not looking forward to watching a Michigan game this year. And when they get in the Big Ten, that's a different story. The conference games tend to come after the out of conference games. That's just how it's worked. But and it looks like they've got some great players on attack. Their attackmen combined for 11 goals last weekend. But
yeah, I mean, you have to think Michigan's got some players, right? I mean, who doesn't want to go to Michigan? I mean, they've got the facilities, incredible school. They play in a great conference, right?
It's a hell of a time. I've had friends that have gone there. It's an absolutely ripper of a time, but
no doubt.
Then their schedule comes out. They just built the stadium for lacrosse. It's beautiful. It's like a mini big house with one side. It's got a huge jumbotron.
Give me some of these out-of-conference names.
Bellarmine, Detroit Mercer, Holy Cross, Canisius, Cleveland State, Marquette, Delaware, Harvard. Harvard traditionally has been in the bottom of Division I the past decade. Delaware can join them, even though they're having a good year this year, or they had a great year last year, and they're going to carry that into this year, as we're predicting. Marquette traditionally average in the Big East. Some good notable alumni, but let's call it spade a spade.
Keep your Delaware, keep your Harvard, keep your Marquette, but come on, like Cleveland State, Detroit Mercy. There's got to be a
Virginia in there.
There's got to be an ACC team in there. Denver's got to come in. Like, you have to have a big game in that new stadium.
Throw Princeton in there. Throw Cornell.
Yale or Penn.
Throw
yeah, 100%.
Yale come 100%. Up and play. It's interesting. And you see teams like Utah. They got Denver, Vermont, Marquette, Georgetown, Jacksonville, Hopkins, Duke, Denver, Richmond, UVA, Georgetown, Duke, Towson, UNC. These teams it's also a confidence builder. If you go down, if you kill Detroit Mercy, it feeds the fat cat, as we used to say.
Yeah,
there's no one's uncomfortable. If you go play a tight Virginia team that might have slept on Michigan to a 13-10 game, you know where you stand. You're like, okay, we just ran with some dogs, with some defending national champs back to back.
Yeah, we can stack up with the best.
We can throw down. So then you go into the Big Ten and you play a Notre Dame, and it's familiar. With this schedule, you go into the Big Ten, you haven't seen someone that's running and gunning like that and clamping on defense. It's a whole different ballgame. So,
and from a recruiting standpoint, like, you know, kids want to see your program A, on TV, and B, hanging with and having the occasional upset of these big time teams, right? Like, it's the
to
University of
put you on
Michigan.
the map. Yeah.
It's the University of Michigan. You should be playing against the University of Virginia, not Cleveland State. And,
Yeah.
no disrespect to Cleveland State. It's a relatively new program. I understand in terms of travel and proximity, it makes a little bit of sense for Michigan to play them. I think they're within 2.5 hours of each other. But come on, like, you gotta
It's
challenge
tough.
yourself.
And as a player, you're jacked about the season. You're grinding all fall. Your schedule comes out and you don't have a game you want to wake up for till you play your first Big Ten game with 5 games left in the season, and
Yep.
you go to Notre Dame. Other than that, it's like 7 tune-up games, and they're not guaranteed to win a couple of those. So
Yeah, no doubt.
it's
And
kind of
also,
like it almost sets you back.
And there's another, like, one more thing I'll say about it. We don't want to harp on Michigan too much, but you just, I think, mistakenly mentioned Notre Dame. They should be playing Notre Dame. Like, they're within 4 hours of each other. It's a massive football rivalry. It's a legendary football rivalry.
Play them
Two
twice.
huge football teams.
You've never
Michigan should be playing Notre Dame.
You've
every
never
year.
made the Big Ten tournament. It's like,
Yeah.
you're not going to see them 3 times right now in your program's history. So, yeah, I'm with you. There's tons of other teams that are notable that are playing. Even, throw a Patriot League into, throw an Army on the schedule. There's tons of teams out there that could get to Michigan or that would host Michigan.
That would love to go to Michigan to play a game.
It's unfortunate, but again, Let's move on. It was enough. The schedules are interesting. We do have our eyes on them. It does matter, and it matters late in the season. Your first 3 games, if you're sitting 3-0 or you're sitting 2-1, it's better than 3-0 against teams that are going to be under 500 at the end of the year. So
yeah, no doubt. And just, one more thing, like, a team like Michigan or an Ohio State, right? Like, your odds of winning the Big Ten aren't that high. They're not, right? So you need, come Selection Sunday, to at least be in the conversation for an at-large bid. It's like, they lost 12-10 to Virginia, or they upset Virginia or Notre Dame or some other big, Syracuse back in February.
If you hit a stride late in the season and you get hot and you go to that Big Ten championship and lose a burner to Maryland,
you're probably out.
You're out unless you get one of those wins early. Then you're in a conversation.
It's an interesting slate of games. We don't have the Ivy League playing yet. The Patriot League isn't in full swing yet either. But definitely still some interesting matchups. Let's start with Colgate flying down to North Carolina to take on High Point. Who do you got in that game, Kyle?
I really like this game. I think it's a good SoCon team versus an average or historically good Patriot League team, but in the past couple of years have been average.
Down years. I'd say below average. Yeah.
Below average years to the standard. I take High Point.
Yeah, High Point's really good. It'll be interesting to see if Colgate has an answer for Asher Nolting. He's definitely one of the better athletes they'll play this year. So that'll be a really good test for them. But I'm gonna take Colgate with the upset, and I think it is an upset. High Point's had a really nice 3 to 5 year stretch. They sent some players to the league. Like, High Point's a real program now.
They've got a boatload of transfers.
Yep, Torpy's done a hell of a job there. But I think Colgate's going to pull off the upset this weekend. Inside Lacrosse had them as a sneaky surprise team this year. I'm taking Colgate. Colgate plays UNC on Sunday. If they beat High Point, and I don't really care what happens on Sunday. It'd be great if they hang tough with UNC. But if they beat High Point, it's a successful weekend. It's a step in the right direction for the program. So I'm rolling with Colgate on that one.
I love it. Let's talk UNC Richmond. We'll stay in the same state.
Yeah, I like the Richmond Spiders. I like them as a program. I think they're kind of a good comp to High Point, frankly. They've both done a really nice job of kind of building themselves into real programs. Both have made the NCAA tournament. Both have upset big time teams, in early season games. They have real players that find themselves on an honorable mention All-American team. But I'm going UNC. UNC is kind of their bread and butter. Early season, they're going to be rolling. Their athletes are going to be flying around, and I think Chris Gray will have like at least an 7-8 point day.
No, I love it. I think usually traditional seasons, I'd go Richmond. I'd have a sneaky Richmond game. I've seen it happen. I've seen him go into UNC on a rainy night on a Wednesday and take them to the bone and end up coming out with a win. It's not the case this year. UNC is too old, too veteran, too star-studded, great freshman incoming. But I think it's going to be a game. I think Richmond had some really good scrimmages. I think Dan Chamati's going to have them teed up with a game plan. I think it's a tighter game than people expect, but I think Chris Gray is the show down there, and he's going to prove that.
Couldn't agree more. Let's move on to Charm City. Hopkins, under the lights, Friday night at Towson. Who do you got, Kyle?
Towson. I'm taking Coach Nads. He's going to have them ready to go. They get transfers. They've got veterans. I think the Tigers really show up and have a big start of the season. Gritty school, gritty culture. I think they have a big start of the season with the win over Hopkins.
Yeah, I think I'm going with the Blue Jays. Sorry, I think it's going to be an old
loving
school.
Delaware so much.
Yeah, exactly. I can't get them off my mind.
Can't get Delaware out of your head.
Both of the birds, man. Blue Jays and Blue Hens. I'm loving
tough
this year. I think the Blue Jays. I don't want to say they're back, because back by Hopkins standards is in the Final Four. But I think Hopkins takes another step in the right direction this year to getting back to where they need to be, back where they want to be, where all their alumni needs and wants them to be. I'm going Hopkins, winning a big game under the lights at Towson. I think Epstein's going to come with a vengeance, right? Coming off maybe his first scoreless game of his career. I think he's going to have a big night, and Hopkins comes away with the W.
Check that. Yeah, I mean, I think the difference maker is Jack Keogh. He's a problem.
Kid's disgusting,
Split Dodge
no
was
doubt.
on Instagram a couple weeks ago. It raised my eyebrows. I think he's their catalyst that's kind of under the radar.
Army UMass. What do you got for me?
I got Army. I'm taking Army. I think Brendan Nickturn, people are saying he's a top 10 player this year. He puts up the numbers. He's a, stout attackman, really good on the island, both hands, great feeder. He'll get the offense going, and Army's defense, it comes every year. So,
yeah, I think Army wins as well. I think all the talk, every year now, the talk's going to be about Loyola as the top dog in the conference, but Lehigh's grabbing all the headlines, I'd say, as that number 2 or maybe that 1B in the conference. But I think Army's kind of flying under the radar. I think they're probably honestly a little pissed off about it. They're going to come out, make a statement. It's going to be a tough game. Like, UMass is always pretty good, but they're always tough, right? They got mass holes everywhere. They always have big athletic poles, kind of mean UMass poles, and always kind of some kind of party starter offensive players. So I think it'll be a good kind of gritty game, kind of an old school, Northeast early season game. But I think Army comes away with it. I think probably your biggest game of the weekend. Talk to me about Hounds, Terps, Loyola, Maryland.
Yeah, the Hounds going into College Park as an alumni. It's a great alumni game. Interstate rivalry. Last time we played in 2015, it was a burner, 1-goal game, mid-season, under the lights. This year is an interesting story. I think Loyola, if they can clean up their goaltending, I think if the tender Sam Schaefer was hot last year, if he can continue on that trend, I think it's a good sign for the Hounds. If not, they'll have to have a someone that could help him. I think if they win faceoffs, it could help. If they, if they clamp on D when they should, it could help. But Maryland's too good to have a question mark in net and expect to be in the game. So I think if Schaefer can show up, I think the Hounds are in it, and who knows what could happen when the Hounds are in the game. But Maryland's definitely the favorite. I'm picking the Hounds.
Yeah, I like it. I like it. I like A, the loyalty, and B, like I respect Loyola this year. I always respect Loyola, obviously, but I think this could really be, a 2012-esque team, right? I don't think everyone's taking them as seriously as maybe they took them when, Pat Spencer was there. I think that kind of feeds into the Loyola Charlie Toomey mindset, right? Like even though
you're spot on. Yeah. I mean, when you start writing them off is when they show up. The problem is if they hang their hat on what they did last year and come into Maryland like they're the same team, I think the mindset's different. They're excited. They finished the season on 4 or 5 straight wins with a big win at Georgetown, then steamrolling through the Patriot League tournament, ending in a COVID fiasco that they didn't get to play Lehigh, but ending up getting a bid, and then going on the road and beating Denver, and then losing to Duke in overtime. That's a successful end of the year. They really put something together from being 5-5.
Yep.
Maryland steamrolled through the tournament. There was no one close to them, and they haven't changed too much. So if Loyola can get that we've been wrote off mentality in, I think it's a great game. If they don't, we'll see what happens. But I'm taking my Hounds.
Couldn't agree more.
We get up and down.
Yeah, couldn't agree more on the storyline of the game, and I think how it's going to be played. But I'm taking the Terps. Yeah, moving on. I think so. Actually, my favorite game of the weekend, Utah Vermont.
Love the game. It's my second favorite game of the weekend.
Yeah, right. I think we'll go a little bit deeper into this in our marquee matchup segment, but just in terms of who I'm picking, I'm going with the Utah Utes.
Wow.
And I like Vermont. I really do. I'm a Catamount fan, and I think they're a really good squad, but I think Utah's for real.
I'm going with the Catamounts every day and Sunday. I think Vermont's too good this year, too many veterans. It's their first home game. They're going to be flying around. They're not happy with how it ended in Duke. They're better than that second half. I'm taking the Catamounts.
Okay. I love it. Moving on, Delaware, Mount St. Mary's. I think we all know who I'm taking. I mean, I'm so bullish on the Blue Hens this year. It's scary.
I think Kay's predicting a Final Four appearance for the Blue Hens this year.
I think they're a dark horse to make the quarters. Like I think Delaware's for real. I'm going Delaware all day on this one, and I know Mount is coming off a program victory against Navy, and respect to them. I'm sure they've got a nice squad this year, probably a veteran-laden team, and what seems like a really good keeper. But I think Delaware is just going to be too much to handle.
I like it. I'm taking the Mount. Coming off hot, coming off a win at Navy. I think they're a senior-led group. I think they can bury the biscuit. Delaware's good, but we'll see how good they are if we'll be talking about them week 3 at Duke. I'm taking them out.
Yeah, Kyle's been hearing me talk about Delaware for about 3 weeks daily.
I love it. I love a prediction like that, because I think if this is their season, it's gonna have to be this year. So
yeah, I would agree. Given their top heavy roster of veterans. Moving on, Georgetown Hopkins. Another huge game this weekend. Kudos to Hopkins. Towson on Friday. All right, let's host Georgetown on Sunday.
Go up to Towson, go down to Washington. It's right there.
They're hosting. They're hosting the Hoyas.
Oh, okay.
So they're staying in Charm City this weekend. But Georgetown obviously coming off a monster year, a really good couple of years, and the roster's littered with big time players.
UNC transfers.
Exactly. And Georgetown's got really high hopes, right?
Great goalie,
if I'm a Georgetown player this year, it's Final Four or bust. Like I don't want to.
No, absolutely. I agree. They're the roster's there.
So it's a huge game. Who do you got?
I got Georgetown.
Yeah, I'm taking the Hoyas too.
I'm going Hopkins going 0-2 on the weekend. Unpopular opinion.
Yeah, I mean that. We'll know a lot about Hopkins at the end of this weekend. We'll talk about that more in a bit. But I'm taking the Hoyas too. I don't think it's going to be a lopsided matchup, but I think Georgetown's better top to bottom this year.
But we'll also see a new Georgetown team. There's new faces out there. Yeah, they've got depth, but maybe they haven't gelled yet. So it's a great early season test for both teams.
Yeah,
I
it's gonna be
really
fun.
tip my cap to the whole thing. It's great.
I love that. That's just such an awesome schedule. Scheduled game. It's great.
Cheers.
All right, moving on. Bucknell, Robert Morris.
I got Robert Morris.
Yeah, I'm taking Robert Morris as well.
Bucknell squeaked out that win at Mercer. That just shows their defense is pretty standard for what you expect there.
It's the standard Frank Federaca. Let's slide to the worst Dodger on the opposing team.
20 yards.
Exactly. He's like, he hasn't even beaten my short stick D midi yet. He's at the midline, and we're going to send our pull from the crease to go like try and wreak some havoc. Look, I think Bucknell's a great school. They've had some really nice teams.
Shout out to Jack Fita for netting a couple.
Yep. Yeah, Jack Fita is a great little
college
player.
Hat trick. I think Robert Morris is veteran. Their Canadians that attack are there. Their grit. They get up and down. Their middle of the field game's great. So I think number 22 is a stud out of the midfield. So I think it's Robert Morris's game, but we'll see if Bucknell's offense could spark something, make it a tight, high-scoring game.
Yeah, I mean, don't be surprised if that's the case. Bucknell has a history of putting up numbers on the offensive end. They just unfortunately have a history of giving up a few more on the defensive end. But yeah, I'm all over Robert Morris in this game. Last but not least, for our pick'em, we have a showdown in Rhode Island, Bryant versus Providence. Kyle, who do you got?
I got my dogs. Dog U, led by Logan McGovern, Coach P. He's going to have them humming. I think it's the dogs all the way, but Providence is a no-joke team in the Big East. I feel like they're going to be creeping on the Big East tournament.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Huge Pressler fan just from a resume standpoint. The guy's, one of the best to ever do it. But the dogs are always tough, right? I think I had 4 matchups against Bryant in college. Never a fun team to play, right? Weather's never great there, and their kids are tough as nails. But I'm going Providence. Absolutely. I think, as Kyle said, they're kind of a sneaky team in the Big East this year. They have Big East athletes. They always have big polls. Seems like they've kind of sent a few polls to play in the MLL and PLL in recent years. It always kind of has some nice attackmen, but
Yeah.
I'm going Providence.
I mean, hopefully Mark O'Rourke for the dogs can start up where he left off. I think he only played in 3 or 4 games last year at the end of the year, but every game he tied his cleats on, he had 7 goals. So
yeah,
if him and McGovern are ripping around, it's going to be a tough assignment for Providence. We'll just see who gets off the bus in that one.
Moving on to our marquee matchups for this upcoming weekend. We just fleshed out a little pick'em segment. Now, if you're sitting in front of your TV this weekend or your computer trying to stream some lax, Kyle, who's your first marquee matchup?
Hounds Terps.
Yeah, Hounds Terps is going to be fun.
That's going to be the one I'm watching, dialed in on. I'm expecting big performance from both.
Yeah, I think Colgate High Point Friday night. I think if it were not on Friday, I probably wouldn't have that as a marquee matchup. But the fact that it's, one of, I think, 2 games on Friday, I think you got to tune into High Point Colgate.
Yeah, it's a statement game for both teams. So it's a good test. It's a good similar talent test, which we love to see. So that's why we're marking that one. I'm going to say Hopkins weekend because it's Towson, then Georgetown. You got to tune into both of those. So those are 2 games on our list as well.
Couldn't agree more. As discussed in the pick'em, this is a statement weekend for Hopkins, right? They've done half the battle, right? They had this epic schedule. Like let's split at least. Let's go 1-1 this weekend. If you're a Hopkins fan or player, right? Let's get this thing moving in the right direction.
You're happy with that, obviously. Best case 2-0.
Yeah.
Worst case. So, and then I think the game of the weekend. No, I'm just kidding. But Utah Vermont's going to be an absolute burner of a time. Yeah, it's going to be a great game to watch. Exciting, up and down. I think two good teams that have shown early that they can play with great teams.
Ryan Cornell is a must-watch in cage for the Catamounts. I think the kid's a stud, dynamic player between the pipes, can also make plays in transition.
Yeah,
And both teams,
not shy to get out of the cage,
which you have to love, right? At least as a fan, you have to love that. And both teams have dynamic players on offense. And as I mentioned earlier, like Vermont's poles are impressive, man. Like they're big athletes, they're rangy, they pick up GBs, they make plays in transition. Really love that game, and I'm pretty hot on those two programs right now. I think they're both kind of
I think they're fun to watch.
Yeah, they're both young, fun programs.
They're both going to do great in their conferences. So it's teams we're going to be circling a lot of weeks. So we'll be talking about the Utes and the Catamounts is kind of on that upward trend with strength.
They definitely are
with strength of schedule and just play and their play and talent. So cheers to them. I think we should move into some breakout players from last weekend.
I love it.
Maybe some names you don't hear about on Inside Lacrosse every week, kind of some under the radar guys that really showed up week one. And I'm going to go with Josh Shawada. I don't know if
Michigan
that's
kid.
How you pronounce it, but yeah, Michigan attack,
yep.
10 points, 5 goals, 5 assists. He was flying around. I've seen some highlights of his. He's nifty around the cage and sneaks him in whenever. So I think he's a player to watch.
Yeah, he's a fun watch, and he's got two other good attackmen next to him, I believe. Michigan's got a really, really strong attack unit, so that'll be a unit to watch for sure in the Big Ten once they get past their powder puff out of conference schedule. I think my guy's got to be Griffin McGinley, goalie at Mount St. Mary's. I discussed it earlier. I said he had 15 saves. We're going to actually stat check correct that. He had 21 saves in their upset of Navy.
That's the game right there. You got an own goal and a kid who makes 21 saves. That's a recipe for an upset. So cheers to that guy for showing up.
Yeah, and you know what? You gotta on these podcasts, ESPN Inside Lacrosse. You're going to hear a lot about your offensive high flyers, but when a goalkeeper puts up 21 saves, you got to give him some love. So much respect to him.
He's going to roll through Delaware with the same number.
No way. Can't have that. All right. Well, couldn't be more jacked up for this weekend. I think 2022 is shaping up to be a really exciting year. As we discussed, a lot of fun matchups this weekend that I think not only will be entertaining watches, but will really have an impact on the complexion of the college lacrosse season in 2022. So
absolutely.
It's going to be
predictions
fun.
Are out there. Let us know in the comments. Subscribe. If you want to keep listening to Snapping Towels, snap it around with us.
Yeah.
We'll pick up some comments and we'll add to the show. We'll definitely be getting some guests on soon once the season gets underway. So stay tuned. And Cam, this has been fun.
Kyle, till next week.